The movie surrounds a young boy called Andy and his dream of becoming a great scientist. Andy prepares a project for an upcoming science fair but ends up blowing his parents' garage, and his parents doubt if he will ever be ready. Andy's brother Gus leaves to school on foot, and Andy refuses his dad's ride, since he prefers to use his bike after he installed a brand new generator on it, and he speeds off, leaving his parents and pet. However, on the road, he doesn't remember the bike working this well in testing, and it begins to malfunction, but he lands at school to meet his brother who arrived earlier, and mocks his brain as being no match to his superior muscles. In class, Andy hands over the assignment he did for his brother Gus, who isn't quite smart, and the teacher reminds the class of the upcoming events like the Halloween, the annual Pumpkin Bowl, and also the annual science fair, which only Andy is excited by. The winners of the previous 4 science fairs, the twins April and May, then present an experiment while mocking Andy, who misses a step, and it blows up in class and gets sent to the principal's office, but he falls down while all kids laugh at him. Back at home, Andy's parents discuss his school report, indicating that he shows promise but lacks restraint and attention to detail. But his mother argues that he is a good kid who just accidentally explodes many things, while his dad plans to put him on the football team. Later, while Andy works on his potato clock experiment, his concerned dad confronts him about his experiments, and Andy argues that he wants to be a great scientist, like his neighbor, Dr. Frankenstein, who Andy's dad calls a lonely freak. His father asks him to freshen up and suggests he join the football team so he could man up a bit. Later that night, Andy decides to consult his neighbor, scientist Dr. Frankenstein, for some help. He enters with his pet into Frank's mysterious house, and they meet the green scientist who asks them not to scream while Andy admires him. Andy also learns that Frankenstein is 13 years old and super strong. And he also shows Andy a tiny monster mold, which is a mindless eating machine, and a fungal spray which stops the monster. Andy also asks to meet Frankenstein and is told he is at a plastic surgeon convention, and the green boy introduces himself as Frank. And Andy leaves, but promises to return the following day. Andy enrolls at the football team where his father is coach and his brother a player, and also encounters the science twins who are so proud of him for giving up the science fair. Andy fails in football practice after his brother knocks him down, and later, he visits Frankenstein. There, he learns that Frank keeps many Christmas lights around since he prefers Christmas to Halloween, as he already looks like a monster for Halloween. Andy then tells Frank that he was hoping that Dr. Frankenstein could help him with the science fair. He also asks Frank why Frankenstein leaves him alone, and Frank says that everybody is afraid of him, and so he stays in to help Frankenstein with his experiments. Andy loves science, but Frank dreams of playing football, where you get to tackle, and they wish they had each other's life. Andy then suggests that they switch lives, and so he asks the scientist Spencer, who is actually a fanboy of Frankenstein, and Spencer designs a football jersey for Frank resembling Andy, which the coach fails to notice. Now during practice, Gus charges at Frank, but he shockingly gets knocked down and hurts his muscles. Later at Frank's house, Andy tries an experiment to change Frank's color, but he fails terribly after it explodes, but he never quits. Andy's father promotes Frank to the first team and is delighted that football really is changing his son. Andy continues to test his experiments at Frank's home, while Frank keeps on enjoying football and knocking down players, but the school folks like Andy for his football. Andy then decides to use lightning in his experiments, but he fails and Frank is not amused. However, he asks Frank to go play football and leave science to him. Later, his dad says he is impressed with his improvement in the football pitch, which Andy feels kinda sad about since it isn't him playing. Frank gets chosen to start for the big Pumpkin Bowl Day, which Andy refuses to attend so he could prepare for the science fair. Spencer and Frank then asks Andy to relax and just take the pumpkin clock, but he shrugs off their ideas as the two head to the game. While the football game starts, Andy tests his science experiment, but he fails and accidentally unleashes Frank's monster mold, which grows a lot bigger and escapes to terrorize the town. Spencer later finds Andy and his pet, and they watch as the mold wreaks havoc around the town and heads for the game, and Andy offers to distract it from the game with some vegetables, which fails. Meanwhile, Frank does a touchdown, and the fans cheer on Andy's name. However, Andy himself runs into the game to warn them of the mold, and everyone discovers that it isn't actually Andy playing. Frank also removes his helmet and everyone runs in fear of him while the monster mold arrives soon after. Andy feels regret for spoiling the day, but Frank encourages him and they team up to tackle the remaining obstacle. Frank then suggests they use Gus's foot spray to drive it back, but Andy mishandles the spray. Gus runs away and the monster opens its mouth to swallow them, and Frank tries to use some kind words to calm it down but fails. However, Gus throws a bag of sprays at the monster which it swallows altogether, with Frank and Andy before exploding and spitting the boys out. The science twins then go ahead to win the science fair after lacking competition, but they thank Andy for saving the town and even invite him to their team for the upcoming robotics competition. Andy's father also invites him into their football team, but he agrees on condition his friend Frank joins in too, and the coach agrees. The group then heads out to get some candy while they joke around, bringing the exciting film to an end. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. I'll be back with another interesting movie recap. Until then, take care.